Joining us now, Matt Simmons, Chairman Emeritus Simmons & Company International, author of Twilight in the Desert, The Coming Saudi Oil Shock and the World Economy, and one of the foremost experts on oil on this planet. I want to run, Matt, through the contingencies to stop this leak. And I want to reference back to a conversation you and I had in the 1 or 2 days, 3 days following the rig collapse. And your point at that time was they may not be able to cap this at all. That was your fear. They tried the containment dome, plan A, didn't work. Then they did something called Top Hat, didn't work. Insertion tube, didn't work. Top Kill was lots of fun TV for a week, didn't work. Cut and cap is what they're calling the current version, which is clearly restricting oil flow, but as we pointed out, they don't know how much is coming out of the ground, so how much it's restricting is up to the PR people, apparently. And then there's these relief wells, which our best case scenario is the end of the summer. Why are you so skeptical that these plan A, B, C, D, E, F, I can keep going, won't work?
Well, it actually, you know, I now look back on the 47 days and think that remarkably, while I was probably one of the first people to figure out the magnitude of this, I grossly underestimated the size of this disaster. But what caught my eye in the first 3 or 4 hours of watching this on television, when I saw this magnificent modern deepwater rig melt down, was that this had to be the biggest blowout in the history of the world. Because literally, I mean, that rig is the size of an aircraft carrier, and it took 2 days to melt it down. And at the meantime, BP was saying it was a rig fire with the diesel on board the rig. But that's just a bunch of baloney. I didn't say baloney. I said a word I wouldn't say in your program. But and what was clear to me was that there must be an unbelievable flow. And I sort of, grew up in the era of blowouts. I mean, I started my career of raising money for diving companies and oil service companies 45 days after the Santa Barbara oil spill. So oil spills sort of been an area I've paid a lot of attention to. And the only way we've ever prevented big oil spills is either basically hoping that the wellbore collapses or the fleets, or we explode them. And so I started talking to some of my friends, and we all came to the same conclusion. It was very obvious when this blew out, it had to be reservoir pressures of 40 to 50,000 pounds per square inch. Otherwise, the fire would have been so intense. And what would have come out first is the blowout preventer would have popped out of the wellbore like a cork. And then what would come out second is the casing. That was what used to kill people on land-based blowouts. The casing would come right up to the top of the derrick and fall on people. So we have an open hole, and that's spewing, I would guess, somewhere between 100 and 150,000 barrels a day of oil, which is why you now have over a 100-mile oil lake at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico that's apparently 400 to 500 feet deep. Now, one of the most important things going on this week is the Thomas Jefferson, the United States' biggest research vessel, is now on location. It was actually in the General Arena area doing ocean bottom profiling, and NOAA 4 days ago we put it off and sent it over. They're going to basically find out where these plumes are and why there's this oil lake. And I would think by the end of the week we'll discover that we have an open hole with no casing in it, which they're about 7 miles away from where BP have been trying to fix these little tiny leaks in the drilling riser. I bet we're going to find the drilling riser still connected to the rig floor. And so they've done everything wrong. So
you say they've done everything wrong. What do you mean specifically when you say that?
Well, they basically are trying to patch up a little leak in the drilling riser. You got to remember that what we're seeing on television, the drilling riser is 22.5 inches in circumference. Most of it is elastomers to make it buoyant. In the middle is a 7-inch column with the annulus where the drill bit goes down. So coming out of that is a little plume of gas. It's not oil. And it's only about 4 feet high. That could not by any way have actually covered 40% of the Gulf of Mexico. So what we're going to find when the Thomas Jefferson finishes its work is we have an open hole with no casing in it. And the only way we'll shut it off is either let it deplete, which might take 30 years, which would not only just poison the Gulf of Mexico, maybe the Atlantic Ocean. Or to put a nuclear device down hole like the Russians did in the 70s and actually encase it by turning the rock into glass.
Is there, one last question, just for time purposes, Matt. If you accept the inevitability of this oil flow, best case scenario for months, worst case scenario for years. Is there anything that we can be doing right now or should be doing right now from a containment perspective that we're not doing, whether it's not just booms, but booms with a curtain that goes to the bottom of the sea, tankers? Again, it's obviously beyond my pay grade, but is there something we should be doing that we're not doing?
The booms don't work because the oil's coming from the bottom of the ocean.
Right.
So it's going to slip right into the booms. It's not on the surface. The one thing we should be doing is every time we unload a tanker at the Louisiana Offshore Loading Port, which is their only super tanker offshore loading, they should go right over to the oil lake and start sucking up this black crude at the bottom and put it on the tankers and get them out of the Gulf of Mexico. Because when hurricanes arrive, if a hurricane actually blows this oil on shore, it will basically paint the Gulf Coast black. Yeah. It'll shut down our refineries and power plants, and it'll be America's worst catastrophe on here.
Yeah. Listen, Matt, unfortunately, I'm certain we'll be talking a lot in the days and weeks ahead. We really appreciate your analysis and your insight, as disturbing as some of the things you say are.
I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. No, I know, Matt. Listen, thank you for sharing your analysis with us, and we'll talk to you again sooner rather than later. Matt Simmons, former chairman of Simmons & Company.